Let's talk about something that hits deep. Something we've all experienced deep. One-sided effort. You know what I mean? You're always the one texting first, always the one reaching out, always checking in. And yet, radio silence, unless you initiate, it's not about being needy. It's about mutual energy. Relationships, whether friendships, family, or romance, thrive on reciprocity. When someone never calls or texts you first, it speaks volumes and it hurts. So what do? You stop chasing and start choosing yourself. You stop handing your energy to people who don't return it. You stop begging for attention from those who don't value your presence. Instead, you redirect your focus to people who do show up, to goals that do grow, and to a version of you that's thriving, not begging. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you keep showing up uninvited, you become expected, not appreciated. You deserve effort. You deserve consistency. You deserve someone who thinks, I haven't heard from them, let me check in, not they'll message me eventually. In any relationship, whether it's a friendship, a romantic connection, or even a family bond, communication is one of the strongest indicators of mutual interest and emotional investment. When you find yourself constantly being the one who initiates the conversations, checks in first, or makes the effort to stay in touch, it creates an unhealthy imbalance. Over time, that pattern begins to feel draining. You start to wonder, would they even notice if I stopped reaching out? Would they make the effort if I didn't? Those questions linger in your mind because deep down, you know that a relationship built on one-sided effort can't thrive. It's like trying to row a boat with one oar. You'll keep going in circles, making effort without progress. It's important to recognize that when communication is always initiated by one person, it sends a silent message your presence isn't important enough to be missed or pursued. And that realization can sting. But even more than that, it can cause self-doubt. You might begin questioning your worth, wondering if you're too much, too needy, or somehow not enough. But the truth is, the issue isn't you. It's the lack of effort from the other side. Communication should never feel like a chore or a test. When someone genuinely values you, reaching out to you becomes natural, not a task they forget or avoid. Think about how quickly people respond to things they truly care about. A message from someone they like, a show they love, or a goal they're passionate about. So if they never call or text you first, it's not because they're too busy or too shy. It's often because maintaining the connection isn't their priority. There's something quietly heartbreaking about always being the one who initiates. It may not seem like a big deal at first. A simple, hey, how are you? Or a quick meme sent to spark a laugh. But over time, when those small gestures are met with delayed responses, short replies, or worse, silence, it begins to chip away at your sense of being valued. Reaching out consistently without receiving the same energy in return can make you feel invisible. It's not just about the missed messages or ignored calls. It's about the emotional weight that comes with realizing that your effort is not being matched. You start to feel like you're doing all the heavy lifting just to keep the connection alive, while the other person barely notices, or worse, takes it for granted. That unreciprocated effort breeds resentment and exhaustion. You might find yourself second, guessing every message you send, wondering if you're bothering them, or hesitating before hitting send because deep down you already know the outcome. They probably won't respond unless they feel like it. That kind of dynamic trains you to lower your expectations, to get used to breadcrumbs of attention. And that's a dangerous place to be. where you start to normalize feeling unappreciated. Worse still, when you're always the one reaching out, it can start to feel like you're chasing someone who's walking away, no matter how fast or often you run toward them. The distance doesn't close, and yet you keep trying, not because you don't see the signs, but because part of you hopes they'll change. That maybe one day they'll finally see your worth and start making an effort. But hoping for that change while doing all the work yourself becomes emotionally draining. Being the only one who consistently initiates contact sends a message to the other person: you're always available. You're always the one who cares more. And unfortunately, some people become comfortable with that. They get used to you showing up without ever wondering if they should be doing the same. At some point, the lack of appreciation seeps into your self-worth. You might start feeling like your presence is optional, like you're easily forgettable. But that's not the truth. You're just giving your energy to someone who doesn't recognize its value. Healthy relationships, whether romantic, platonic, or professional, thrive on mutual energy. That means both people invest, both people show up, and both people care. It's a simple concept, yet it's so often overlooked. We tend to excuse lopsided effort, hoping that with time, the other person will come around or start matching what we give. But a one-way flow of energy isn't a connection. It's a drain. Mutual energy isn't just about texting first or making the call. It's about emotional presence, consistency, and the willingness to be an active part of someone's life. It's about someone checking in on you not just when they need something, but because they genuinely want to know how you're doing. It's remembering the little things, making time despite the business of life, and choosing to be available, not out of obligation, but out of care. When energy is mutual, you feel safe, seen, and valued. You don't have to wonder where you stand because the other person shows you through their words, actions, and presence. There's a natural rhythm to the interaction. No one's keeping score, but there's an unspoken understanding. I've got you, and you've got me. On the other hand, when the energy is one-sided, it creates emotional instability. You might constantly wonder if you're too much, if you're reaching out too often, or if your presence is even wanted. You start adjusting your behavior, shrinking yourself to avoid seeming needy, when in reality, all you're asking for is basic reciprocity. And that's not too much to ask. It's the bare minimum for any genuine relationship. It's easy to fall into the trap of overextending yourself because you care. You want to believe the best in people, so you make excuses for their lack of effort. They're busy. They're bad at texting. Maybe they're going through something. And while all of those may occasionally be true, repeated patterns tell a different story. If someone values you, they'll find a way to show it, even in small, simple ways. Mutual energy doesn't require grand gestures. It's the consistent, intentional ones that matter most. You should never have to convince someone to care, to respond, to show up. Real connection doesn't feel forced. When both people bring energy to the table, the relationship feels balanced, uplifting, and real. You know you're not just a convenience, a backup plan, or a placeholder. You're chosen because both of you are choosing each other. There comes a point when you have to stop chasing people who clearly don't want to be caught. It's a hard truth, but one of the most freeing realizations you'll ever have. When someone repeatedly shows disinterest, through their words, actions, or lack of effort, it's not your job to fix that. It's not your responsibility to prove your worth to someone who doesn't see it. We often chase people because We believe if we just try a little harder, give a little more, or wait a little longer, they'll finally see what we bring to the table. That they'll recognize our loyalty, our love, our support, and decide to stay. But the harsh reality is, if someone wants to be in your life, you won't have to beg for their time or attention. You won't have to convince them of your value. People who genuinely care about you don't make you chase them. They meet you halfway, at the very least. When you continue pursuing someone who repeatedly shows you they're not interested, whether through delayed replies, cold conversations, or a total lack of initiation, you're not just wasting your time, you're also slowly chipping away at your own self-respect. You're placing your self-worth in the hands of someone who isn't even holding them with care. And over time, that starts to hurt more than their silence ever did. Chasing someone who doesn't reciprocate is like running after a bus that already closed its doors. You might keep running, thinking that maybe, just maybe, they'll open the door and let you in. But deep down, you know they've already moved on. Still, you chase, hoping to be chosen, forgetting that you have the power to choose too. It's important to recognize the signs of disinterest early. You deserve enthusiasm. You deserve effort. You deserve someone who makes you feel wanted, not someone who treats you like a backup plan or an afterthought. When someone is interested, they show it, not just in what they say, but in how they make you feel. They ask questions. They follow up. They initiate. They remember. Disinterest, on the other hand, is quiet and careless. It doesn't make room for you. It keeps you on the sidelines. Letting go of the chase doesn't mean you're giving up on connection. It means you're shifting your energy toward people who actually want to be in your life. People who don't make you guess or question. People who choose you willingly, not when it's convenient for them. When you stop chasing those who show disinterest, you stop settling for less than you deserve, and that shift changes everything. When you constantly pour your energy into people who don't give it back, it's easy to forget that you are not only worthy of love, you are also worthy of peace, growth, and joy. And sometimes the most powerful move you can make is to stop giving so much of yourself to people who barely give you anything in return. Instead, redirect that energy inward to yourself and outward to those who actually reciprocate. Start by turning the attention you've been giving to others back onto yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need? What have I been neglecting within myself while trying to keep others close? You'll often find that the time and energy you've spent chasing people could have been used to heal, to grow, to dream, to create. You deserve to give yourself the same dedication, affection, and care that you've so freely given to others. Self-focus isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's about reclaiming your power and remembering that your value doesn't decrease just because someone else fails to see it. When you begin to nurture yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, something incredible happens. You stop craving validation from those who don't deserve a seat at your table. You stop begging for scraps of attention because you've learned how to feed yourself from within. But redirecting your focus doesn't mean isolating yourself. It means being intentional about who gets your energy. Start giving more of yourself to those who show up for you, not just in big moments, but in everyday ways. The people who ask how you're doing without needing a reason, the ones who reply with warmth and interest, the ones who remember the small things you said weeks ago because they were listening. These are the people worth investing in. These are the relationships that nourish rather than drain. When you surround yourself with reciprocity, everything feels different. You no longer feel like you're fighting for connection. You're living within it. Conversations flow effortlessly, affection is mutual, and time together feels light instead of heavy. You feel safe, seen, supported. And that's how it should be. The truth is, not everyone will match your energy, and that's okay. It doesn't make you too much, and it doesn't make them bad. It just means your path isn't meant to be walked side by side. And that's why it's so important to protect your peace by focusing on what and who pours back into you. Because life is too short to waste it proving your worth to those who don't know how to appreciate it. Whether we realize it or not, we are always teaching others how to treat us, not through what we say, but through what we allow. Every time we overlook disrespect, accept inconsistency, or excuse neglect, we're silently telling the other person, this is okay. I will put up with this. Over time, that pattern becomes your normal, and you find yourself settling for behaviors that are far beneath what you actually deserve. It starts small. A text goes unanswered, and you convince yourself they're just busy. A plan gets canceled last minute, and you brush it off. They stop reaching out first, and instead of addressing it, you take it upon yourself to always initiate. You keep showing up, keep trying, keep hoping they'll change. But instead of meeting you with more effort, they get more comfortable doing less, because they know you'll still be there regardless. And that's the danger of tolerating too much. You slowly begin to lose your boundaries. You stretch your patience. You shrink your expectations. And before you know it, you're accepting treatment you once promised yourself you never would. But here's the truth. People rise or fall to the standards you enforce. When you respect yourself, when you uphold your boundaries, and when you walk away from what doesn't feel right, you send a clear message. I know my worth, and I won't settle for less than that. It doesn't mean you're being harsh or cold. It means you're protecting your peace and refusing to let anyone chip away at your self-esteem. Boundaries aren't about controlling others. They're about honoring yourself. And honoring yourself means refusing to tolerate behavior that makes you feel unimportant, unloved, or invisible. It means noticing when the relationship feels like a one-way street and having the strength to pull back instead of pushing harder. It means understanding that if someone repeatedly chooses not to show up for you, the most loving thing you can do is stop showing up for them. What you tolerate sets the tone for every relationship in your life. If you tolerate silence, you'll get silence. If you tolerate half effort, you'll get minimal effort. But when you stop settling and start demanding what you deserve, not through words, but through actions, you change everything. Because the people who truly value you will never make you question your worth. They'll meet you with the same energy you give. They'll appreciate your standards, not resent them. Sometimes, the most revealing thing you can do in any relationship is pull back, not out of spite, not to play games, but to give space for clarity, for truth, and for people's real intentions to surface. Because as long as you keep carrying the connection on your shoulders, you'll never know if the other person actually wants to be there or if they're only showing up because you're making it easy for them. When you step back, you create a vacuum. And what fills that space tells you everything you need to know. Do they reach out? Do they notice your absence? Do they check in? Not because they need something, but because they genuinely care. Or does your silence go unnoticed, your presence unmissed? You can't fully see someone's intentions when you're doing all the work. If you're always texting first, always making plans, always initiating conversation, then there's no opportunity for the other person to step up because they've never had to. Sometimes you have to stop giving so much in order to see what they're willing to give on their own. And that's where the truth reveals itself. Letting go doesn't necessarily mean cutting someone off. It means removing the pressure you've been placing on yourself to maintain something that should be mutual. It's trusting that if the bond is real, it won't disappear the moment you stop holding it together. In fact, the strongest connections often grow deeper when tested with a little distance, because the people who care will make the effort to close the gap. On the other hand, silence has a way of exposing apathy. If someone doesn't notice you're gone, they were never really present. If they don't reach out when you stop texting first, they probably weren't that invested to begin with. It's a painful realization, but a necessary one, because it frees you from illusions. It shows you who is in your life because they value you and who's there out of convenience or habit. And here's the thing, when people truly care, they don't need reminders. They don't need you to pull away in order to miss you. They already do. They don't need silence to appreciate your voice. They already value what you say. So if your absence goes unnoticed, it's not your loss, it's theirs. But you would have never known that if you hadn't stepped back and allowed space for their true colors to show. Letting go gives you clarity, peace, and power. It shifts the focus from desperately holding on to rightfully assessing who is worth holding on to. You stop wondering and start observing. You stop begging and start receiving. And more importantly, you learn that sometimes letting go is the only way to truly know who's meant to stay. There is a quiet kind of pain in constantly feeling like you have to earn someone's time, attention, or affection, as if love and connection are rewards for proving yourself rather than something given freely and willingly. But the truth is, in any meaningful relationship, you should never have to beg to be chosen. You should be chosen naturally, intentionally, and consistently, because you matter. Being chosen means more than just someone replying to your messages or spending time with you when it's convenient. It means someone sees your value and decides, on their own, that they want you in their life, not because you remind them, not because you chase them, not because you overextend yourself just to stay relevant, but because they genuinely want to be there with you, for you. When you're always the one initiating, always the one trying to keep the connection alive, it starts to feel like your presence is optional. You begin to question your worth, wondering if maybe you're asking for too much. But wanting to feel valued, prioritized, and chosen is not too much. It's a fundamental need. We all want to feel like we matter to the people we care about. And there's nothing wrong with that. Unfortunately, many of us get stuck in cycles of proving ourselves. We show up repeatedly, thinking our consistency will inspire theirs. We give more, hoping they'll finally reciprocate. We accept less than we deserve just to keep the connection from fading. But the harsh truth is, if someone truly wants you in their life, they won't make you fight for a place in it. You won't have to send the first message every time or wait for them to remember you exist. They'll show up, not perfectly, but intentionally, because that's what people do when they care. The most beautiful relationships aren't built on desperation or pursuit. They're built on mutual choice. Two people who see each other, who value what they have, and who make the effort because they want to, not because they're being chased or convinced. And that kind of connection doesn't require games or guessing. It just flows naturally and honestly. You deserve someone who chooses you in the small, quiet ways. Someone who checks in not because you haven't texted in a while, but because they've been thinking of you. Someone who listens, remembers, and responds, not out of obligation, but out of care. Someone who makes you feel like you belong in their life without you having to constantly ask for space in it. So here's the truth: you are not hard to love, and you are not asking for too much. You're simply asking the wrong people. When someone cares, you'll know, not because you're constantly searching for signs, but because they show up. Effort will not be a mystery. Presence will not feel like a privilege you have to earn. Stop chasing, stop begging, stop shrinking yourself just to fit into someone else's life. Let go of the ones who leave you questioning and hold space for the ones who bring you peace. Because you deserve a love that's mutual, a connection that's effortless, and relationships where you are not just an option, but a priority. Choose yourself, protect your peace, and remember, real ones don't have to be reminded to care. They just do.